Now, we have already discussed about what action research is and the meaning and scope of action research. Now we will be dealing with what are the different models of action research. There are, when talking about models of action research, there are a lot of models, like around 10 to 12 models are there. But only the important ones are ones I will be teaching here. The first one, the first thing about models that we have to learn is there are numerous authors and researchers who have proposed different models for undertaking action research. As I said, there are different types of models, and because the action research process is dynamic, the models may look different from one another, but actually they all possess common foundational elements. So they may appear different in their in the outer shell. It may be different, but the inner core of the elements that is inside the action research process or models are similar. And most of the models follow a general sequence, which are like starting with the central problem or a topic that we have to take and do action about that. And the second one is observing or monitoring the current practices. What we are doing right now, or what poses the problem, and or what we have to do to avoid that problem. That we have to observe and monitor. Then collecting and synthesizing information and data. Like while we are taking class, why does that problem happens? We have to analyze that. We have to observe at what part or at which particular point that problem happens and how to avoid that. And taking an informed action, like based on the content or based on the data we have collected, we have to take action to resolve that particular problem. The action taken at the end of the process serves as the basis for the next stage of research. The basic idea of action research is like, it is not a one-step process. It is a cyclical process. It is an iterative process. That means like whenever we think it ends, like if we take one action, we will get one result, right? But from that very own result, the problem may not have solved. So from the result that we have got from the first action that we have to take another action. So it is spiral kind of. It is a repeating process. Okay. So the first model that we are going to explain is Kerr-Lewin's action research spiral model. So the first step in this process is identifying a general or initial idea, and the next step is reconnaissance or fact finding. Okay. The next step is planning, and then after planning we have to take first action step. Then we have to evaluate, then amend plan, then take second action step. I will explain what are these steps in details. So, Kerr-Lewin's action research model is an iterative cyclical process. I explained what is an iterative, right? We will have one result. From that result, we will again start doing action and observing, and then we will find another conclusion. Then we will start taking. So it is an iterative process or cyclical process, and it is designed to solve problems and implement changes to continuous learning. Okay. So the first step is identifying a general or initial idea. So what is identifying a general or initial idea? It means that the cycle begins with a specific problem. Like while we are teaching, the teacher may encounter with some specific problem. Like the students may or may not have a particular. The thing is like it is not only useful for problem solving. Like it is not only to avoid problems. If a particular student, if students show particular interest to certain subject or certain topics, then also we can use action research. So the cycle begins with recognizing a specific problem, challenge or opportunity for improvement. So this is this serves as the starting point and goal for the entire process. So the first step and the important step is identifying a general or initial idea, and the another one is reconnaissance or fact finding. So in this step, before directly jumping into action, we have to plan. Like it is necessary to understand the current situation. While we are teaching, while I am teaching now, I have to observe what are the problems that are faced by students while I am teaching this. So we have to observe. That is what this step means. And this step involves gathering data, observing the environment, and deeply diagnosing the context of the problem to ensure any future actions are well informed. That means I have to make sure that what are the things are making the problems. I have to observe. And what are the things what are the data that I can collect by observing this. And after that, I have to ensure that future actions based on this will be well informed, that I can resolve all these problems. And the next one is planning. We have already got the gathered data in our hands. After that, we are using that data during the fact finding stage, and we will develop a strategic and actionable plan. And this intervention is specifically designed to address the problem identified in the first step. Like, we have got one problem, we have identified the difficulties, and after that we have a plan, and that plan is to resolve the problem that we have found in our first class, our first action. And after that, the next step is take first action step. So why does it mean like first action step? I already told you that just by using one action, one step, the problem may not be solved. So we have to take multiple action, and in the first action step, we have to implement what we have planned. What we have planned, we have to implement in the first action step, and we have to execute the initial plan and put our proposed challenges in motion with the real world environment. Real world environment in the case of classroom becomes real world classroom situations. So we have to implement that our plan in the real classroom, and we have to observe how that plan works. Okay. Then we have to evaluate. Evaluation in the sense we have how much the plan that we have used already is effective. Do we have to make any changes, or do we have to continue in the same phase? Or what is the response of the students? Is it more, or is it less? And based on that, we have to make an amended plan. So based on the feedback and insights gathered from the evaluation step, the original plan is modified. That's right. From the first action, we have got the problem, right? After the evaluation step, we have got a result, right? The result may be positive or negative. Based on that, we have to change our plan. And if the plan is like, if in the evaluation step, if we find out that this step till now the problem is not solved, we have to take another action. So it is a cyclical process. So this is the third Lewis model. The next one is Chemnitz and McTaggart's spiral model. So this is similar to what we have done, right? The steps are similar, but the appearance is different. Here we have to reflect in the sense, like while teaching we may encounter a problem, right? So that is represented here as reflect. On that reflection we have to make plan. Then after that we have to plan. Then observe, reflect. This is phase 1. What is phase 1, phase 2? Just like previously explained, it is a continuous process. The problem may not be solved at the first time. So we have to continue that in the another phase. So the Chemnitz and McTaggart developed the concept of action research, and they proposed a spiral model comprising 4 steps, which are planning, acting, observing, and reflecting. So the first one is plan. So based on the initial reflection, we have already in the picture we can see that here it is based on before plan there is a reflect, right? So based on the initial reflection or recognized problem, we have to develop a strategy or forward-looking plan for specific intervention. Like we have to plan a particular action to solve that particular problem or particular reflection. So after that, we have to act. What we have planned, we have to put in action. We have to implement in our classroom. Then after that, we have to observe. In this case, the observation is not done after teaching. We have to observe while we are teaching, after we are teaching, after we have taught our subject or a particular question, and we have to gather the data on what happens or what has happened during our teaching, and based on the observed data we have to reflect. Like based on the gathered data we have to critically evaluate the observations and make sense of the data, assess whether the action had intended impact and extract the lessons learned. Like we have to check if the plan that we have used have actually worked. If not, we have to plan again. That's if the plan has worked, then we don't have to repeat the phase. If the plan has failed, we have to move to the phase 2, which is the exact steps: plan, act, observe, and reflect. So this is about Chemnitz and McTaggart. Then comes the John Elliot's model. So this is a specific case of both McTaggart and Kurt Lewis. This is the combination of both of them, and it is a special model. And in this one, we can find out that the steps that have the basic steps that involve, like action, plan, it has been broken down into another simple particles. The first one is initial idea, initial problem that is facing. Then is reconnaissance, that we have to find out the factors, or we have to observe and collect the data. Then comes the action. Before action, here action is not done in a particular way. Like we are not implementing all the actions at the same time. We are implementing a small change. The action is divided into 3 steps. Action step 1, action step 2, action step 3. Even if the problem is very small, we have to divide the how we are going to resolve. We have to divide that into 3 parts, or we can include more parts. So the first action is divided into action step 1, action step 2, and action step 3. Together it is known as action steps, okay, or general plan. And after that, we are implementing only the action step 1. Okay, then we are implementing action step 1, and we will monitor what is the effect of that action. If it is positive, then we will implement another step, which is action step 2. If it has failed, then we will again. If it is failed, like from the reconnaissance, we can identify if the problem, if the action is positive or negative. If it is positive, then we will continue with that plan, right? With the same plan that we have created. If it has failed, then we will revise it, and then we will continue. So this is the cycle one. Then on the amended plan, just like the previous one, we will get a rough idea about what is the problem, what the problem is, and we will change our plan of action. Okay. Then comes the cycle 2. So it is like a cyclical process. And this model, which is employed by AN, shares many of the features that are English and McTaggart, and is based on Lewis' works in the 1940s, and it includes identifying like general ideas, reconnaissance, planning, action, evaluation, amending plan, taking second action step, and so on. So, like I said, all the action models are different only from outside. All the steps that are included in all the things are similar. So the first one is initial idea and reconnaissance. So the process begins with identifying a problem or area of interest, just like all the other models. And by reconnaissance, we know what is reconnaissance like. It is gathering data, and we will understand what causes the particular problem. And the another one is, the next step is general plan. In the general plan there are 3 plans, right? Action plan 1, action plan 2, and action plan 3. So instead of one broad action, instead of implementing the changes particularly like if the action that we are planning is big one, we are breaking down that into 3 steps. Instead of implementing that directly, we will break down and we will implement a small part first. Then the plan is broken down into sequence of smaller manageable action steps. Then the implementation of action step 1. So we have divided the action steps into 1, 2, 3. Then we will implement action step 1. In that we have to execute the very first part of our plan. And then comes the monitoring, the implementation and effects. So here we are not just to observe the outcome, but how it was implemented. Like in this steps, it is different from what we have the other models. Like in the monitoring implementation, we are not just monitoring about what changes have happened. We are monitoring about how we have implemented that. If we have to implement the same step in a different manner, that comes the implementation part. Then is the reconnaissance or revised general plan, general idea. So this is the most defining feature of this model. So after monitoring, we have to perform second reconnaissance to assess the newly situation. So first we have one problem, then we will do reconnaissance based on that problem. Then we will have a general plan. Then we will implement the first step or first action step. Then we will do reconnaissance again. Then we will revise the steps again if there is any other particular problem that has come, that has evolved during the implementation of this step. And then we might realize the initial understanding of the problem was slightly off. If the understanding of the problem was from our part or not, like sometimes what we consider as a problem may not be problem to students. So problem can be happen from both the teachers' part and students' part. So it helps to identify if the problem is from our part or students' part. And in cycle 2 and cycle 3, it is an iterative process, like it will continue. And instead of repeating the exact steps, the subsequent cycles adapt based on the revised understanding of the problem. Like we are not doing the same steps again and again. We will revise the steps based on the result that we are getting from our previous steps or previous cycles. Then comes standard plan, like we will change our plan based on what the results are, and then we will continue that. So this is about known areas. Then I have got one research paper like classroom action research based learning innovations, Kennedy's and McTaggart's models. So in this research paper it talks about, this is the abstract part, it talks about this paper explores the implementation of classroom action research using the Kennedy's and McTaggart's model, which operates through a continuous spiral cycle consists of planning, action, observation and reflection. By applying this model, teachers are positioned not just as instructional facilitators, but as active researchers and agents of change who tackle real classroom problems. The findings demonstrate that this collaborative model effectively enhances teaching strategies, boosts student participation, and drives the ongoing professional development of education. Ultimately, CAR serves as a vital framework for cultivating a research culture in schools, raising the overall quality of education, and improving student learning outcomes. So, the conclusion from this paper is that the application of Kennedy's and McTaggart's CAR model, it is proven that it is highly effective in improving classroom learning quality and understanding of the students about teaching a particular subject or particular topic. So, that's all about my topic.